So if you are having somebody living with you, now many a times we have a situation that many senior citizens have people living in their house whom they call paying guests. There's a very big confusion in the understanding and definition of paying guest. There is a circular from the Commissioner's office which says that if you have a paying guest, it is non-occupancy. Now, it's very important to understand in what context that circular is issued. There are many forms of letting out your flat. You can let out a flat technically with no charge. You can let out a flat on lease or leave and license, or you can let out your flat as paying guest. So if you are letting out your flat as a paying guest, that means you are taking people in and out, but you are not living in the flat. And students come in, or working people come in for 3 months, or traveling people come in for 3, 4 months, but the owner is not in the flat. Then it is paying guest. But if the owner is in the flat, then it is not non-occupied. The definition is already a settled position. But in spite of that, there are some confusions which I would like to clear out. As long as you are occupying, somebody living with you, no non-occupancy. Now we come to how do you define flats where the membership has changed, but society has not made somebody a member, but the person is living in the flat and society starts charging non-occupancy. So when we have a situation of charging non-occupancy for reasons which are technical, so we have to look at under what title is he there. If he is there with an agreement, registered, application made, then it would be a bit rich, I would say, to define an owner as a non-occupier. So these are areas where the contention comes in and needs to be cleared out. We also have situations where there is nobody in the flat is locked, and some societies treat that as non-occupancy, that nobody is occupying. That is also not the purpose of the non-occupancy charge, that if nobody is living in the flat and flat is locked, then you don't charge non-occupancy. The next thing that comes up is how much do we charge? What do we charge? Different societies have different rules, but the bylaw lays down the rules which we have to follow, which is non-occupancy has to be 10% of service and maintenance charges. That means you don't include property tax, you don't include any other charges, but 10% purely of maintenance and the service charges. So that is the distinction that has to be carefully made. And I have seen places where they have some funds to be collected, उसपे भी डाल देते हैं 10%, or they have penalties which are charged on that, so they charge 10%. So that sort of a thing should not be there. In some societies, they charge a lump sum. Now that also is something which is not as per the bylaws. So you have to go strictly as per the bylaw by charging 10%. There are many societies which don't charge any non-occupancy, but charge an entry and an exit charge, lift charge or something to that effect, which takes care of your 11 months or 12 months. That would again depend on how the resolution in the general body is structured, because if the non-occupancy charge is defined and the general body decides that, oh, because of inconvenience or the amount is not large and you may have something like 500 rupees maintenance, and to collect 50 rupees every month and to issue receipts become a problem, then society may come and say, okay, we'll charge you 700-800 rupees, which will be including your incoming charge, lift charge, this, that. But they have to be very cautious because the circular is very clear that under no other name or guise can the non-occupancy be increased from 10%. So the society has to be very careful that they don't break the law. or technicalities because of that reason. So that takes care of the non-occupancy. Now, we have some cases where there are some senior citizens and they keep some student who stays with them, and many societies object that you have to go and take a police verification or do things like that. And then it becomes non-occupant because it's a tenant and you have to make an agreement. The bylaws are not very clear, and neither is the position very clear. But we have to look at the spirit and the word. And the spirit and the word is that if there is somebody living with you, not necessarily a relation as defined in the Act, would still not be non-occupation, because non-occupation word has been defined, that full custody has been given, possession has been given to somebody, and the member or the owner is not living in the flat. That is the fundament. Now we go to the next subject, which is the transfer charge. Now, transfer charge is again restricted by a GR, which came in many, many years ago. And there's a restriction of 25,000 rupees to be paid for the transfer charge. Now, here what happens is the price of the flat has gone up, the rents have gone up, and the society feels that when the circular came out, the rent was 10,000 rupees. Today it is 5 lakhs. And the size of the flat, 25,000, doesn't look good. And if the man is using it commercially or member is using it commercially, then they try and bring in some different forms of names, like donation or whatever you may call it, or charges, and such charges are made. Such charges actually are not allowed, and there are many judgments, and even the registrar, without going to the cooperative court, can rule that these are against the bylaws and should not be charged, and the bylaws should be followed. So this matter can be litigated, even though it may come under a dispute, can be litigated in the registrar's office by putting an application that I have been charged, I am being charged, and my membership is being restricted, and registrar will issue a direction that you have to follow the GR. So once you come as follow the GR, then it is no longer cooperative court issue. It is an issue of the registrar. And I have seen of late many such orders coming out from the registrar's office and successfully being implemented. And although the committee complains that they have lost revenue, but law is law and law has to be followed. Now there is a question of what are the other charges to be paid when you buy a flat? Because transfer charge is normally paid when you buy a flat. Question is, who will pay? The buyer will pay or seller will pay. There also it is a settled position that incoming member is also going to be a member, outgoing member is a member today. So it is mutuality, and therefore both can pay, anybody can pay, it really doesn't matter. So that matter has been settled for quite some time. And I have to distinguish between transfer charge and transfer premium. What I have discussed so far correctly is called transfer premium. Transfer charge is 500 bucks, 500 rupees, which is in the bylaw, which remains constant, and is the premium I have been discussing, although I have used the word charge. So please understand that to mean premium. So transfer premium is where the issue comes in. And then of course the person who comes in has to pay a membership fee, with the new buyer has to fill the forms, application forms and other items, and pay the 100 rupee membership and take the membership of the flat. Now there have been cases where people have paid the transfer charge, got their documents, and then they are at a loss because at the time your membership is stuck. It is more like a coercive situation where you have to make a payment to get your membership in. हम बाद में झगड़ लेंगे, पहले काम तो खत्म करो, is the approach, which also works because many a times you can file a complaint before taking possession to the registrar saying that I am being charged. Take possession, pay the penalty, then go back to registrar immediately and tell them that, look, I was forced to pay, I've paid, this is my charge, and please give me an order immediately. That also works at times. I've also seen cases where after paying, even after 3 or 4 months, the buyer goes to the registrar and complains, or goes to the court and complains. And they have been successful because they interpret the law as it should be, that you have to pay X amount and nothing beyond that. So that portion is very, very clear. And also it is effective. And in case the society is being difficult, then either you take a recourse pre or post or at the same time, but within reasonable time, and the success rate would be there. The other charges which are related to transfer and non-occupancy are normally furniture charges, to carry your furniture up, carry your furniture down, extra water charge, extra some nameless charge. Those are all not permitted under the bylaws. And if the society has to charge, and there are things like lift charges, for example, then it has to be approved in the general body. And it is recommended that before you enforce it, these things should be discussed with the registrar so that you get his blessings before you enforce a charge. Otherwise, it will amount to amendment of the bylaw, for which there is a process to be followed. And the charges are laid down where it says, one of the charges heading is that as may be decided by the general body. But if it is normal, it is not considered coercive. But if those charges come as a large figure, large is a very subjective word. If it comes as a large figure, then of course the issue is how to handle it and when to handle it. And that would be left to the discretion of the buyer and the seller, how they want to handle it. But law would always be on their side. And if they handle it quickly and not waste their time, then it becomes easier for them to get a decision in their favor. Though it takes some time, it may take you 6, 8 months to get the decision, but it's worth the wait if the amount is large. Now, one item which I have got a note is the confusion on paying guest again. So I think just for clarity, I'll again repeat it. Maybe some members have joined in late. So for clarity, paying guest is a guest to whom you can give the whole flat on a paying guest arrangement and give custody and possession of the flat for a duration on a paying guest arrangement or agreement. That would attract the charges, non-occupancy charges. If you are giving the flat while you are in occupation and you have given one room or two people are sharing one room, extra room, it is a paying guest but would not attract non-occupancy because the member is still living inside the flat on a normal, regular basis. So he is a guest, he is paying, but not in the definition of non-occupancy, paying guest, because he is in occupation. So that is to be seen. Occupation part is important. By what name you call it is irrelevant. You may call it leave-in license, you may call it paying guest, you may call it my friend is living here not paying anything. But if the friend is living here and not paying anything, then it has to be clearly explained to the society and they will agree or not agree. Otherwise, if you keep a friend and he tomorrow decides not to leave, तो फिर महंगा पड़ जाता है. So you save a bit of a money, but at the end of the day, you run around getting your flat vacated because there is no agreement. So that procedure used to be followed in the olden days, but now I think people have got wiser that non-occupancy charge baro and be with a title and get your police verification and get your lease registered with the authorities and prepare a proper vacation document, because there are many cases where people enter and that to get them out, eviction is a very big process. It's an extremely difficult, long expensive procedure and he stops paying payment, so it becomes lene ke dene. But if it is a family member, which is defined in the bylaws and in the act, then none of the charges, whether you call it transfer charge if you are giving it to them, or if you are giving on non-occupancy to your son, daughter, or those will not attract, non-occupancy would also not attract transfer premium. Because transfer within the family doesn't attract both these charges. So these are the two major things which we normally don't pay attention to, and I've tried to make it as clear as possible. So now if there are any questions, I can take a couple of questions because we still have about 10 to 12 minutes with us.
सर पहले 2 क्वेश्चन आए उनको ले लेते हैं. एक विजय मैडम का
Okay.
क्वेश्चन है, एनओसी चार्जेस, society raises a quarterly bills when flat is rented out in the middle of a quarter, can NOC be charged for full quarter? Should it not be pro rata?
If the bill is charged quarterly, it must be charged before the quarter starts. And if you are renting it out after the quarter starts, then society will not bill you till the next quarter. And once you notify the society that I'm having a tenant, you make a letter to the society saying my tenancy is from so and so date, and therefore non-occupation should be calculated from the date the person is entering into the agreement.
सर एक और क्वेश्चन है उनका, and how to solve NOC being charged on maintenance charges plus electric charges?
Electric charges is electric charges for common area, because if you have got your own bill, then you are paying your bill directly. So उसके ऊपर तो tenant भरता है bill, tenant is paying the bill, so that should not be an issue. But in many societies, they break down the maintenance into different headings. So we have to see the components which go into maintenance and service charge. And common area electricity will go into the definition of maintenance and service charge.
विकी जी आप पूछ सकते हैं अभी.
Yeah, so I want to know regarding you said that if the person is staying with the member and the non-occupancy charges cannot be levied, can you tell us under what section, under what bylaw it is? Because many societies, even if the paying guest is staying, they are levying non-occupancy charges, especially in my own society. So if I can cite them the bylaw or an act, so that will be helpful for the other people.
Yes, sir. The word non-occupancy means what it means. If the member is living there, he is occupying. So you can't call him non-occupancy. And there is no bylaw which says non-occupancy of a part flat or one bed in a room or one sofa in the living room. Non-occupancy means I'm not occupying the flat, period. Now, there are definitions available, and maybe I will send these judgments down as we get along, because there are judgments also where non-occupancy का definition दिया गया है और बहुत clear है कि if you are occupying, then you are occupying, and if somebody is with you, you are still occupying. So non-occupancy is non-use of the flat by the member, and bylaw does not say that.
So unfortunately,
go ahead, sir.
It will be very nice of you. It will be very nice of you, and I request Anika Bafna to send it in the WhatsApp group. What is the definition you are giving? Because the chairman of a society is one of the leading solicitor of a very big law firm, and he disagrees. So I have to take something to convince him. That's
No problem, sir. No problem. I will not dispute the quality of the chairman, because he may have his own reasons to interpret it is. But if I will send the judgment to madam, आप देख लेना, and it is a very clear issue on non-occupancy. का definition देखना है हमको, whether the person is occupying or not. If he is not occupying, part occupation or one bed in the house, he is still occupying. The definition of non-occupancy is very, very simple. In simple English, I am not occupying and I have given full charge and possession. There are two factors which are important. If I give you the key of one room, I have not given you full charge and possession of the whole flat. So you may use one room, you may come in, you lock your room, doesn't matter. So you will still be occupying the remaining house. So it won't attract non-occupancy. Any other clarification required?
Sir, we were discussing the lift charges for shifting and all that. If the general body has not passed the resolution, but the committee still insists on levying the lift charges, then what is the recourse?
The recourse is very simple. The section 72, 73, the committee has powers under the general body. General body is supreme. And if they don't have permission, they have to follow the bylaw, except if general body has given a carte blanche to managing committee to do what they like, which they cannot do.
No, no, we never gave it. This is all dictatorship going on. And there's interest on interest being levied to one of our members. That's why I specifically yes.
I see that very, very common. There is a very common phenomenon. And now, just for information of all the participants, I got a call from one of the registrars to examine the charge. Now, it's very unusual to call a panel auditor to examine the charge made to somebody for whom a recovery application has been made by the society. So just as we have in the court that if a measurement has to be done, the court appoints a commissioner to go and do the measurement. Registrars have also now started asking panel auditors, I think chartered accountants in particular, to have a look at the billing and work out the billing as it should be as per law and give a report on that. So it's a new phenomena I have seen, which some registrars have started using. So I think sensibilities are coming in, but you have to ask for it. And the particular case which I have been asked to see has got a compounded interest. And
Yes,
how
same
they
here.
how they compound it, they take the annual balance and take it as an opening balance for the next year and charge.
Exactly. It really beats logic, but then what do
Now,
we
while
do?
we are on that, I would also want to clarify when you are making a payment to the society, then the payment that you are making is to be credited to interest account or to the principal. So this is an area which has been a question, and society normally tends to adjust the revenue first and keeps the principal hanging so that they can keep on.
Fleecing
Yeah,
flogging the dead horse.
Nita madam, can you mute please? So then you have an issue of the principal remaining and the interest being adjusted, and they keep on charging. Now here I would like to point out that the issue is that there is a contract between society, and very carefully, kindly listen to what I'm saying. It's very important. Though I've digressed from the transfer charge, but because it pertains to payment of money, which is also in the transfer, I'm taking the subject up. There's a contract between a member and a society to pay charges. And if the charges that are charged to you are in multiple heads, then section 5960 of the Contract Act is very clear, which says the payer of the money has the right to decide how the funds will be appropriated. So it's an appropriation section in the Contract Act, and it is to be decided by the payer at the time of making the payment. So if he writes a letter saying this should be adjusted against the principal, and then the section 60 says that if the society, if the receiver doesn't want to follow, then he should not accept the payment. So if he accepts the payment, then it is mandatory, he has to follow. So he can reject it and say, no, I will not take on this head, I will only want on this head. Then it's a dispute, then you go to cooperative court. But on his own, the receiver cannot appropriate money at their own will and fancy, which is what also I have seen quite a few accounting angles in societies. So that is an area which section 60 and 59 of the Indian Contract Act, which talks about appropriation of funds at the discretion of the payer, debtor creditor bolte hain wahan par. So that is how it works. But it's very important that you write with a covering letter, or if you're giving a check, write behind the check. And if you are sending NEFT, then a covering letter that this NEFT has been made, and the breakdown of this amount to be credited is 10 rupees to water, 20 rupees to electricity, whatever you want to do, and keep a copy of that. That will help you at the end of the day. And many societies are not aware, and even the accounting companies who do accounts, there are so many companies who do accounts for societies, they are also not aware that the right is with the payer and not with the receiver. Any other question that needs to be clear?
विजय मैडम का एक सजेशन है डीम कन्वेंस पे, और उनका एक क्वेश्चन भी है सर, व्हेन अ डिफॉल्टर मेंबर पेज अ सम, शुड इट बी अप्लाइड टू इंटरेस्ट, शुड इट बी अप्लाइड टू इंटरेस्ट फर्स्ट, और एनीथिंग ही माइट सजेस्ट?
I have just finished, I'll repeat it again. Section 59 says the payer has the right to decide which payment has to be appropriated in what manner. The receiver does not have the right. In section 60, it says that if he has not even said before, he can say that at any time and get it corrected. But if nothing is said, then the receiver can appropriate in whatever manner the receiver wants to appropriate. So if the society wants to appropriate, it can do so if the member has just paid an amount without specifying for which he is paying. But if he is paying for interest, then he should say this payment is for interest. If he is paying for principal, he will write and say this payment is for the principal amount, which includes so much water, so much maintenance, the electricity, property tax, whatever it is. Please specify it, make a total, and at the last sentence say this money shall only be applied for these headings and nothing else. So that statement is very, very vital. Section 59 of Indian Contract Act.
सर नीता मैडम, हम लोग 3 मिनट है हमारे पास, नीता मैडम का एक क्वेश्चन, नीता मैडम बोलिए.
So Israni sir, I have a member in my society who had paid the maintenance. Along with that, we had some collections for redevelopment charges. So she paid an extra amount, and then after, when she came to know that none of the members are paying, she told the accountant to adjust it to the maintenance amount. So is it wrong or is it right?
It depends
Because
on it depends on what is agreed in the general body. If general body says something has to be paid, then it has to be paid, and if others are not paying, then it's the job of the managing committee to collect.
No, the
And
managing committee has to collect, but what she is saying that since nobody has collected it, I mean, nobody has contributed to it, I will pay it when it is coming. So at the moment, you'll adjust it with my maintenance account. So can it be done that way? I mean, is it an accounting? Because accountant is...
Everybody breaks the red light signal. So I get caught and I say everybody has broken, so I'm going to break. No, you follow the law. If the general body has decided you make your payment, others are not paying, they will be penalized. You can't join the herd and say I will also break the law because others are breaking.
No, but what about the thing that the accountant has already adjusted it as maintenance? So
Then managing
I mean,
committee will pass a resolution reversing that. The power lies with the managing committee, not with the accountant. Accountant has no power. The accountant is employed by the committee, not employed by the member.
okay.
So you will find a letter to the committee saying to the accountant saying this is wrong. This is the decision. Please follow.
Okay. Okay. Fine.
Thank you.
एक सजेशन है कि redress of complaints to different authorities by the cooperative society and types of complaint we file before appropriate authority. बड़ा अच्छा subject है sir.
Well, it's a very important subject. It's bylaw 174, which is very explanatory. But I think we can take that as a subject and devote 30-40 minutes to explain to, because the word used authority नहीं use किया है, वहाँ competent authority use किया है in bylaw 174. And the reason they have used the word competent authority, because competent authority is somebody who has the power to summon you and punish you. And that is why you will see auditors are not mentioned there as a competent authority, because auditors cannot summon and cannot punish you. So competent authority के list में auditors नहीं हैं,
जी सर.
but बाकी सब authorities हैं.